Hello and welcome. My name is Kendall Platt and I'm the Mindful Gardening Coach. I help women who struggle to switch off, stop doing all the things they feel they should be doing, and instead take a moment to slow down in their gardens, even if they feel like they don't have time. I do this through my individual coaching program, Time to Bloom, and also my 12-month group program called Mind in Bloom. There's a theme there. This masterclass, this Mindful Seed Sowing in Pots masterclass, is actually one of the 12 or so mindful gardening masterclasses that my individual coaching clients and my Mind in Bloom members get access to, as well as mindset and planning masterclasses that help them to actually carve out more time for them to switch off in their gardens. In today's masterclass, I will be covering the principles of mindful gardening, including my FLOTS framework, the tools and equipment that you're going to need in order to sow seeds in pots, and then how and when to mindfully sow different types of seeds in pots to ensure the best results for you and your seeds. Now, I must just point out that this is specifically about sowing seeds in pots. There's a future masterclass which is about direct sowing, because certainly the mindful gardening techniques that you employ are different. So it made sense for me to split them out. And these are 30-minute short masterclasses to be designed for you to attend over lunchtime or watch whilst you're having your lunch and fit it into your day. So your guide should have been sent out to you ahead of the class if you are joining us live. If you are a Mind in Bloom member, the guide is in the March guide in the program, in the group. And there is, if you are watching on the replay, then the link to access the guide is in the replay email as well, which obviously contains this video. So presumably you have received that if you're watching this video. It contains most of the information that I'm going to share with you kind of on a basic level, but if there's other things, I'm going to demo a few things to you. So if you want to make notes on that, feel free to print it out, make as many notes as you want. Yeah, so let's get started. So we're going to start with the FLOTS framework, okay? Now this is something that I've developed as a kind of aid memoir, if you will, to help you engage all of your senses when you're gardening mindfully. So the way that I teach mindful gardening, it's very focused on engaging your senses, because we're short on time. We haven't got tons of time to garden mindfully. And so we want to get into that flow state, which is that calm state, as quickly as possible. And a really effective way to do that is to engage as many of your senses as possible. So you can use this framework whenever you do any mindful gardening activities. I'm going to talk you through it. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about my 6 C's method, which I use for sowing seeds. And then I'm going to demonstrate a couple of sowing a couple of seeds so you can see how I use these techniques. Okay, so FLOTS, the first part then is feel. So what can you feel? So in this instance, when you're sowing seeds, does the edge of the seed actually feel like in your hands? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is the seed surface rough? Is it spiky? So it's really about, when you're picking up your compost to put it into your pots, what does it feel like? Is it cold? Is it wet? Is it a bit dry? So, really think about all that real sense of touch. Whenever you're doing anything, during this process, you're really engaging all of those senses. The next one then, the L, is listen. So what can you hear? So you can probably hear, I'm sat in my garden, you can hear traffic noise, yes, but you can also hear the odd bird singing as well. So it doesn't have to be related to the activity that you're doing. You can engage these methods when you are just sitting out in the garden, enjoying hopefully the sunshine and a cup of tea, to really kind of help you find that calm quickly. But in terms of seed sowing, listen. Well, you'll see me in a minute, but before I get the seeds out of the packet, I'm going to shake the seeds and I'm going to listen and try and use all of my senses to imagine what those seeds are gonna look like. And then later on in the process, obviously I will compare what I thought they were going to look like with my prior knowledge of seeds, but also listening to them to what they actually look like. Okay. The O then is observe. So what can you see? So I want you to look really closely at your seeds. Are they all different colours? Are they the same colour? I want you to look at your compost that you're using. Can you see lumps of wood in there and stones? Because if so, when you're sowing seeds, you want to try and get rid of as many of those as possible. So there's a real opportunity there for you to engage that sense of sight and you know, also improve your the compost for the seeds at the same time. The T then, probably not going to be engaging the T in this particular exercise, which is taste. Unless you fancy trying a bit of compost or eating one of the seeds, but I don't, so I'm not going to. So what does it taste like? So if you know, you can engage this in many different activities, but obviously only if it's safe to do so, and it's something that you know is safe to eat and something that you have grown yourself. And then the last one then is smell. So actually, probably we're not going to use this for the seeds per se, but actually compost has got a lovely, earthy, organic, deep, rich scent. So actually this is a brilliant one when you're seed sowing to engage your sense of smell. Take a big old handful of that compost and bring it up to your face and just close your eyes, take a big old deep breath and just let yourself be transported to somewhere that smell reminds you of. So the sense of smell is really brilliant at bringing back memories. It's very closely linked to your memory. So this is a really, really powerful one. So the next section that I'm going to go through is equipment. Now, I'm going to show you a range of equipment here, some of which you have to buy and pay for, and some of which you can find in your recycling. So, you know, I really advocate for gardening being available to all. And I know certainly there are many of us that don't want to be buying more plastic. So if you can use plastic items that you already get in your house for sowing your seeds, then, you know, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. I'm just going to take a little sip of tea. So we're going to start with our pots. Now, you've probably seen these kind of plastic flower pots. These are quite hard wearing. I didn't buy them. I think I bought some plants in them and then I've just kept them. I use these every year. I wash them. It is a bit of a faff to wash them, but you know, I don't want to chuck them away because it's just more plastic, isn't it, being used. So I keep these. These are really brilliant. They are good for big seeds that we're going to sow in a minute. An alternative that's a bit more eco-friendly are these kind of coir pots. So these, in theory, are biodegradable, but I'll be completely honest, when I sow in them, before I plant the plant out, I tend to tear them apart. Because I have found that sometimes they can restrict the root growth a little bit, so just go careful of that. But these are a great alternative. So if you are brand new and you want to buy pots, something like this is really good. Then obviously for smaller seeds, you've got things like your trays here, which you've probably seen. These are obviously plastic, and actually, I'll be honest, they don't last more than a couple of seasons because you're digging, once your seeds have grown, you're digging in there to get them out, and it's really easy to damage the plastic. So I have actually stopped buying these, and I'm just going to show you these because I think they are amazing. Bought some of these, which are called soil blockers. Now, you've got two sizes. You've got a really tiny size there, you can see, and then you've got a bigger size. And basically what you do is you use these and you use a special mix of compost, and you basically, I'm going to demo it in a minute, but you pop them into the compost and you scrape them off, and then you pop them, you kind of almost eject them, if you will, into a container. Now, I was given a great tip by a flower farming friend of mine that when it comes to the really small ones, so these are the small ones that you can see, they've got a tiny dip in the top for the seed to sit in. And what they have advised, and what they've done a lot of testing and found to be really useful, is once you've sown your seeds, you just put your lid on. This is just an old Chinese takeaway tub. There's no holes in it. and they found that the amount of moisture that's in the soil, in the compost that you've made the block out of, is enough. When you keep the lid on, it's enough to keep these little blocks moist enough until the seeds germinate, generally, okay? And then what happens is, once the seed germinates, you take that little block and you slot it into this hole here, okay? And this again is made from the soil with this big one. And then they grow, and then once the roots have filled this block, then they're pretty much ready to go out in the ground. There is a slightly bigger one that you can buy as well, but I haven't bought that at the minute because I just didn't think I'd use it. So yeah, I'm really excited to try these. I haven't tried them before, but I've got a lot of flower farming friends that are using them, and you know, from a completely eco-friendly point of view, they are brilliant because you are not using any plastic. So I'm going to demo them very quickly now. Let me just get a fresh. So here's my little one I'm going to use. I'm going to put my gloves on actually because So I've basically got some mud here. Mud. I say mud. It's got to be quite moist. The dirt that you use in these. You want it to be nice and moist. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to angle that down a little bit. Move some of the dirt over. There you go, you can see a bit better now. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to press it in because you want the dirt to really go, there you go, into the block there. Okay. I'm going to do that a few times to make sure they're really full. And then you're going to scrape the bottom on the edge like that, okay? So you've got a nice flat bottom there. Sorry, there you go. And then all you're going to do is you're going to pop that into your, hopefully this works. And they all actually come off and they're not too wet. Oh, ta-da! So there, you can see they're a little bit wibbly there, but you get the idea, and you can quite clearly see the little hole in the top. Okay, so then I'm just going to show you the big one as well. So same kind of thing. Obviously, you're going to need a bit more dirt to fill these. I'm not sure this one will work. Actually, it might be a bit damp for the. Yeah, I think that soil's a bit damp actually for those ones. So maybe for that, it wasn't quite, it's a bit too damp. But there you go, you get the idea. Right, let me move that back out of the way and put this so you can actually see me. So they are an option. I think the starter set, which is the two of those, and you get some little inserts as well, because actually what you can do is you can change the insert on the bigger one. So for some of your bigger seeds, it doesn't have quite such a deep hole, it's just got the little indent, and you can sow your bigger seeds in there as well. So something like maybe pumpkins that you would want to sow, you could sow straight into the bigger block. So for the two of those, I think it's £45, but you know, when you consider that's going to last you forever, I think it's great value. Then we've got things called root trainers. Now these are my sweet peas growing in here, as you can see, and what this consists of basically is, pull this out, is these separate little things, but they allow for the roots to grow really long. Let me open these and see if I can show you. So can you see how there the roots have grown really, really long? And it just allows some plants, peas, beans, sweet corn, really like to have a long root run. So they will be much, much happier if you can plant them in something like that. But again, obviously they are, it's plastic, so you might not want to buy a brand new plastic thing, but something that's really good and also completely free are toilet roll tubes. So these are really good for growing things that like something with a long root run. And what I like to do is I like to keep these fruit punnets with the holes in the bottom and just keep them in the top, because it keeps them together, but it allows the water to drain out the bottom so they don't get too waterlogged. So you could probably fit another couple in there, you know, or slightly big one, you could put a load in there. So there's loads of different things that you can save. Obviously things like yogurt pots as well, you could save and sow your seeds straight into them for a shorter pot as well. So yeah, so I think that's pots. I think I've done all the pots there. We have another couple of options in terms of sowing your seeds. So these are something that my Mind in Bloom members get in their monthly mindful gardening activities boxes. And these are called Koya compost discs. Now, obviously they're lightweight. They are good for germination. You can sow one seed on the top of these. And all you do when you receive them is I'm just going to take that rose off actually, is you just pour a little bit of water in there. Can you see my daughters have been putting mud into my water joy of joys, and you just sit that in there, and what will happen is it will basically expand. So I'll leave that and do a bit of a Blue Peter and show you that in a bit, because I'm going to go on and talk about compost. Now, if you have ever been to any of my masterclasses before, and certainly my Mind in Bloom members will know that I bang on and on about peat-free compost. Basically, compost that's got peat in is really bad for the environment. When peat bogs are farmed, they release greenhouse gases, and they release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and also peat bogs take a really long time to form. So when that natural resource is harvested, it's really, really damaging for the environment. So if you can buy peat-free compost, please do. This is just one brand new Horizon that I like. My local garden centre sells it. Something else that's a really good option that's completely peat-free is Koya. So this is basically a bigger version of the disc. It's the same stuff. So all you do with this is just get a bucket, chuck it in, pop some water in. I never know quite how much, I'll be completely honest. Now this Koya is quite a key component that I've been using in my soil for the soil blockers that you just saw me make, because that is a mix of garden compost, garden soil, Koya blocks, and what else is in there? I think a bit of vermiculite as well. So they are, yeah, they're really good. The Koya will always be really good for that. That will add the thing that will help the seeds to germinate. So the next thing you're going to need then is plant labels. Now, I have loads of these plastic ones that I reuse time and time again. I just use nail varnish remover to take the name of the plant that I've used it for before off. Again, a free option. Lolly sticks are really great for this. Okay, starting to rain. Good-o. Watering can and water. So I have just got a plastic watering can here. It's a bit knackered, as you can see. I am hopefully getting a new one for my birthday that will last me a lot longer, because this one is broken and I didn't want to buy a new plastic one. So gone for that. But you don't need a watering can, especially if you've only got a small garden. You can just use an old, like a 2-litre Coke bottle or something. Just fill that with water and that will do your plants. So depending on what size your garden is and how often you're watering, then you don't necessarily need to have a watering can. It's up to you. You're going to need some seeds. So I've got a couple of options here. I'm going to be sowing these in a second. Some vermiculite. Now I've spoken a little bit about that because it's gone in the compost blocks, but this is really useful to add to your compost, even if you've just got normal compost when you're sowing seeds, because it aids the aeration in the soil and it allows the air to get to the roots of the plant, and it also helps the plants, the compost retain moisture. So this is a really, really good thing. I actually sprinkle it on top of all of my seeds that I sow as well, just to help that moisture stay in there. Then there's a couple of nice to haves now. One is a greenhouse or a cold frame. Now, these aren't necessary for sowing seeds, but what it will mean, and if you've got your guide, you will see that on the when to sow seeds in January and February, if you don't have a cold frame or a greenhouse, then I would hold off from sowing until March, because what will happen is your seeds will just get really, really leggy, and which is where they're really, really long and thin, and they will be less productive. So it's better to wait. If you don't have a greenhouse, wait until March. Now, these are capillary matting. So they basically soak up moisture. So what you would do is you would sit your seeds, your sown seeds on top like that, and you would water them, and then or you can water straight onto the matting. It will soak it up and it will slowly release the water for the seeds to drink. So that just helps them, especially in the summer when it's warm, just helps them stay a little bit hydrated for longer. And then the last thing to show you then, again, a nice to have, is a heat mat. Sorry about the state of this, it's absolutely minging, but it's well used, as you can see. So this is just a horticultural heat mat. I've got 3 or 4 of these, I think, that I have in my greenhouse, and they will just help your seeds to germinate quicker, especially if you are sowing in January and February when temperatures are still quite cool, even in March. It will just help things get going a little bit quicker. And then once they've germinated, you move them off the heat mat, and then they will just kind of get used to the normal temperature outside. It just kind of gives them that little bit of a boost. Now I'm going to talk very briefly about the 6 C's method, okay? So this is my method for, sowing any type of seed in a pot. So I'm going to talk you through it and then I'm going to demo it. So the first C then is clean. So whatever you are using, whatever equipment, whatever pots you are using, whatever plant labels you're using must be free from disease. Because if you are using a pot that's dirty and perhaps has some disease in it from previous years, and then you put your fresh seeds into it, they're just going to really struggle. You're kind of giving them, you're not giving them a fair chance, because they're already going to struggle to grow. And then if you are cleaning your pots before you're starting, making sure that you're engaging that FLOTS that I spoke about at the beginning. So, all your senses. So the temperature of the water, the smell of the soap or washing up liquid or bleach that you're using to clean those. The second one then is compost. So the next thing you will do is you will add compost to your pots. Actually, I think I might actually do this whilst I'm doing it. So I'm going to use these to sow some tomatoes in. So obviously actually no, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to use this to sow, I'm going to sow a squash seed, I think. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take some compost. I'm going to use some of this. And I'm just going to take it in my hands. I'm just going to hold it up to my nose. I'm going to take a big old deep breath of it, and then just close my eyes. This really reminds me of like being little and going on like Sunday walks with my parents. We went to this massive woodland near us, and it always smelled really like organic-y and piney and lovely. And that's what this smells like. So as you do that, and then as you just crumble it in, feel it fall through your hands. Notice any really big lumps, try and break them up a little bit, or any stones. Now there are a few stones in here, but they're quite small, and I don't mind too much about that because my seed's quite big, and they're going to add, help the soil stay aerated whilst the seeds grow. So putting more of that in there. Probably one more handful, I think. Okie dokie. Okay, right, I think that's pretty good there. So you can see there, I've left a little bit of space at the top, because what you don't want to do is fill it right to the top, because then every time you water the seed, well, the compost and potentially the seed will wash away, okay? Right, so your next stage then is to take your seed out. Now, before you even get your seed out of the packet, I want you to engage that FLOT again. So give it a bit of a shake. Might not work with these ones because they're quite big seeds. There we go, tap it against your finger. And you can hear that. Listen to the sound. These sound quite flat. They don't sound like they're rolling around in there particularly. And if they were, when you went like that, you would hear them rolling around. So they're not doing that. But when I tap them, you can hear them bashing against each other, okay? So next thing, you're going to tip them out onto your hand. Oh, there's quite a few of them there. Now I'm only going to sow one in this pot because squash seeds like a lot of space. They're quite big. But you can see there that the seed is really flat. So it's completely flat. But you know, notice it. Does it look like all of the other ones in the packet? What does it look like, and what does that mean that you're going to have to do for it? So with a flat seed, the way we sow flat seeds is we sow them on their sides. And this is because if you sow it flat like that, the water can pool, when you water it, it can pool on top of the seed, and it can actually end up rotting it. So it's a much safer bet if you want to be more sure of it germinating, to sow it on its side like that. There we go. Just pop it down. Now I've put that in you can see it there. I've just kind of put it in a little bit, and then I'm just going to cover it over. So the third C then is contact, because what you want to do with your seeds when you're sowing them in pots is you want to make sure that they make contact with the soil. And that is because there's goodness in the soil that the seed needs in order to germinate. So if you kind of just, for some really tiny seeds, sometimes you just drop them on the surface and they might fall on a bit of stone, they might fall on a bit of wood, or they might just kind of be sat slightly wonky and they're not actually contacting with the soil. So just use your finger to gently press them down and make sure that they contact with the soil, okay? The next one then is cover. So I have covered this seed slightly, but what I'm going to do, because I do it with all of my seeds, is I'm going to cover it with some vermiculite. Like I said, this helps the plant to retain the water. So literally just going to give a really gentle little sprinkle on the top there, okay? You don't need tons, just enough to kind of aid the aeration and the moisture retention as well. And then you're onto your fifth C, which is conditions. So this is enough light, enough water, and enough heat. So for me, I'm going to pop this on my heat mat in my greenhouse. If you don't have a greenhouse, you may well be sowing on a windowsill in a house. It's going to be relatively warm, so you probably don't need a heat mat. If you want one, you can get one. But on a nice warm windowsill, that will be really happy. Likewise, the reason I advocate for having a greenhouse or a cold frame when growing seeds is that you tend to get, well, the seeds will be able to get light from all angles. Whereas if you think about when you grow in front of a window, the seed will only get light from one side. So what that means is once the seed starts to grow, it will start to bend towards the light. And that just means that you as the grower, probably every day or so, you need to check your seeds and you just need to turn the pot 90 degrees, and what that will mean is that the seed will grow upright rather than bending towards the window. If you forget the odd couple of days to turn it, it's not the end of the world. Just, you know, keep going with the turning and it will straighten itself out again. But the bonus of a greenhouse obviously is you can just kind of chuck it in there and not worry too much about it. I mean, obviously you need to check for water, which is the next thing. So then your next thing that you're going to do, and I'm going to do this on my tray so I don't get water everywhere, is you're going to use your watering can. Now this one is not such an issue because it's quite a big seed, but I always water with a rose on because it just makes the spray a bit finer. But certainly if you are sowing small seed, I always water from the base. Now I'm going to show you what I mean by that. You see how it still pooled quite a lot there in the water. But it's not the end of the world for that. There we go. And then you're obviously going to put your plant label in as well. But so say, for example, you're sowing in something like this and you've got all your seeds nicely in there. There's some little tomato seeds perhaps. And then you get your watering can and you go and you water. The water will go on top and it will very, very easily, because your seed is only sitting on the top of the soil, can very easily wash it off. And then you come back like in, I don't know, a couple of weeks and you're like, why have my things not germinated? Like, I know I've put them in there, but what's probably happened is it's probably been washed out. So what I do when I have these kind of seeds is I always water from the bottom. So I have a couple of trays like this one here, but without the holes in. So they've got no holes in. It's almost like a water bath, basically. I fill the tray with water and then I take my seeds and I just sit it in like that. And what will happen, especially if there's vermiculite in the soil and on the top, it will suck the water up into the soil will become moist again. And that's a much better way to water them than plonking a load of water on the top. just because your seeds can stay in place then. And then the last C then is check. And this is a really great one for a quick mindful gardening exercise, is to check on your seedlings. So I come and check on my seedlings at least every other day, but most days. And I just come out to the greenhouse. I just, see what's going on, see what's germinated, see if they need some water, pop them into the bath if they need it. And if I am ever growing indoors, then I'm just making sure I'm doing that turning as well. So this can be done in 5 minutes. It doesn't need to take oodles and oodles of time. It's a really nice thing to do first thing in the morning with a coffee, or if you've only got 5 minutes at lunch to come out, just come out, have a bit of fresh air, check on your seeds, and then you can go back inside with your energy boosted and ready to tackle the day. So in your guide, I have included my seed sowing schedule. So obviously there may be seeds that you want to grow that I haven't listed on there. If that's the case, send me a DM and I'll let you know, and you can kind of add them on, when I'll let you know when you should sow them and they can go on. Bear in mind that those seeds on there are only ones that are sowing in pots. So there are more seeds to be sown in those months, but I direct sow them. And the reason I direct sow them is because sowing seeds in pots does take up more time. So I try and sow as much direct as I can, because it saves me the washing of the pots, and it saves me loads of time as well. So that is the next masterclass, which is direct seed sowing. So also, I think it's important to say, don't try and sow everything on the list, because, you'll probably just get really overwhelmed, especially if you are new to this. Just choose things that you think you're going to eat, or that you love the look of in your borders, or you would love to make little posies of and bring into the house. I don't want you to get overwhelmed, because that is the last thing that this is all about. This is all about helping you find calm rather than adding to the overwhelm. Another couple of things to mention is that pot noodle pots are actually really good for plant labels. I forgot to say that earlier. So you can actually cut them and make like strips from them, and then they can form your plant labels. That's another option if you don't have lolly sticks. So your homework then is to carve out some time for you to get sowing. Take a picture of your seed sowing area. Hopefully it's neater than mine. Your seeds in your pots, or your happy and calm face after you've had like 20 minutes out in the garden sowing them. Post it on Instagram, tag me. My handle is @adventureswithflowers. I will reshare, and I love to see you getting out in your garden and getting mindful with your seed sowing. If you find that you are struggling to find that time for yourself to actually get your seed sowing done and to actually take that time for yourself in your garden, then you are in luck, because this is exactly what I help women just like you to do. So over the course of a full growing season in Mind in Bloom, we work on streamlining your current work and home load, because it isn't just workload, there's a lot going on at home as well. We work on effective planning to make sure that you get that time for yourself every day. We do mindset work to help you stop feeling guilty about taking that time for yourself. And we also learn my full suite of mindful gardening activities, as like the one that you have done today. Plus there is much more. You get your monthly mindful gardening activity in the post as well, which is a good, that kind of, a lot of our members say that's actually a really good, I almost feel Kendall saying to me, get out in the garden and do this. It's a really good reminder of, oh, I haven't taken much time for myself, and it gets them outside. So if that sounds good, drop me an email. My email address is kendall@adventureswithflowers.com, and I can send you a link to find out more. But other than that, I hope you have enjoyed today. I hope it's given you a few ideas as to what you do. Get your guide and get sowing. See you later. Bye.